All right, so here's the avoid list on the 9 lessons learned the hard way. I can't believe I spent $4.8 million on leads. It's crazy. First of which, when I'm training a new agent that's just starting to do PPC, I tell them to get really focused on having all of the systems in place to hit a 2% conversion rate before we scale, before we add more gas to the fire. I learned this lesson the hard way because as soon as we started doing deals, I just threw money at it. And then I had my little ISA and things were going, but I was throwing so many leads at them that we built a very inefficient business. And for years, we were really only at like a 0.8% conversion rate, which isn't super profitable. We were growing, but not super profitable. So now, look, if you're buying 50 leads, make sure you can do a deal a month. If you're buying 100 leads, get to 2 deals a month. At 150, you should be doing 3 deals a month. 150 is kind of the ceiling of complexity per agent, I find, so we scale based on 150 leads a month per agent because we like to go deep with our agents versus wide. So hit those, and the way to do that, of course, is to have your lead protocols, have all your tracking, and just have the right conversion system dialed in while you're not spending the big money. You'll save yourself thousands of dollars that way. Once you got it, though, it's time to spend money. So I love the saying, scared money don't make no money. As soon as you're hitting 2%, it's time to go big. It's add more gas to the fire, bring in more talent, and let's go. Because this is where the big growth here is that difference between the 5 people at that one offsite and the 25 people on that boat was 2 years from piling money into this and really scaling what was working. One thing to watch, though, is when you do that, the first KPI that will drop is your calls per lead. And I missed this. I took my eye off the ball. In fact, because we were running so many concurrent systems and nobody was really tracking it well, I didn't know what my number was. The average number of calls, phone to phone, per lead is a very, very important KPI to watch. If you allow it to drop below 5, you're going to see your overall conversion plummet. When you throw too many new leads and too much new money onto the thing, usually what happens is your agents or your ISAs get addicted to the low-hanging fruit. Okay? They stop really trying to squeeze all the juice out of the orange. So calls per lead is one indicator you've got to watch as a team leader to make sure that you're not providing too many leads to keep that 2% conversion rate. So flying blind is really the thing that will kill you in the lead generation game. You've got to have great tracking. You've got to have all of the key performance indicators, the lead indicators and the lag indicators in a dashboard so you can see it. And Morgan's done a great job now of really, really improving the CRM, the REW CRM. It's got awesome tracking baked into it. We track a few other multipliers as well. We've kind of narrowed it down that there's 9 interconnected multipliers that all influence each other. And you get this great compounding effect when you get it right. So we've also found that of the 9, usually there's about 3 in there that you can get a big lift on, like 30% or better. Something like leads, super easy, just turn the dial, right? Or contacts, just crack the whip. But those ones here, you can get that lift right away. If you can get 3 levers to improve by 30%, you'll double your output. Once you've done that, that's your low-hanging fruit. After that, the other 6 levers, things like your show-up rate, some of those are harder to get the big incremental improvements. 8 or 9% improvement across those other levers, you'll double your business again. That's that rule of 72. The only way you're going to be able to do this is if you have great tracking. Now, I was a bit of a hypocrite for the last year. I took my eye off the ball on this, and I sent an email to my ISA manager and our sales manager. I said, look, I can't believe this. I trained this, and we haven't had a meeting where we looked at where the lowest or the biggest levers were across these 9 multipliers. We looked, we made a game plan. We think we can 3x our output with one little tactic on each of these 9 levers. So, to be continued on that, but I've done it before. I think we can do it again. I think this is a Southern phrase. Nobody will buy the cow if you give away the milk for free. Same applies with real estate. If you want your agents to sell 4, 5, 6 homes a month, you have to give them permission to stop doing all of the free, busy work for people who are not committed to them. So we tell our agents, look, we don't want you out there building portals for people who you haven't met. We don't want you previewing properties or doing research for people that you've talked to once, but you don't even know if you're their agent. You don't have to do that. We run a very simple system where we move people towards a game plan meeting, and at that game plan, you either get the work order or you don't. but you're not doing a bunch of work in advance of that. When you eliminate and give your agents permission to do that and operate that way, their bandwidth opens up. Then they can sell 4, 5, 6 homes a month without working 80-hour weeks. So don't give away the milk for free. This was a big one. So we started getting, obviously, lots of new business. Our conversion game was really tight. We were crushing it, making a nice 10-to-1 ROI on our lead spend. But at the same time, we're adding 10,000 people a month to this database and literally doing nothing with it. We'd send out our value and we would put out our Vantage report, but nothing in terms of engagement. And so it just dawned on me one day, there are people in our database, we haven't even checked in on them on a one-to-one basis in over a year, right? Huge amount of opportunity. So I'll give you guys something actionable. You can literally do this before we go and get drinking tonight. Go into your CRM, scrub out anybody that's active, scrub out anybody that's currently engaged or whatever, and you don't want nobody that you've talked to in the last 30 days. And then you'll have this list of hundreds or thousands of people. Select all, subject line on the email, let me know. Email body, super simple. Hey, merge code first name. Are you still planning to are you still planning to move in 2024? Question mark. That's it. You send that out, you're gonna have 40 some odd percent open rate, and you're probably gonna have somewhere in the neighborhood of a 10% reply rate. It's crazy. People will tell you where they're at in their process. People you haven't talked to in 3 years will reply back. Our ISAs will get inundated with 20 or 30 really solid opportunities like that. So then, great, now that we know that, automate that. Build that campaign in there so that can never happen. Never allow your leads to get stagnant. Have these automation campaigns running with very simple, not mass emails that look like they were mass emails, one-to-one. Even though you're doing it at scale, it's got to appear one-to-one. That's how you re-engage them. Don't let your leads get stale. Cost me millions. We just heard about AI being able to make calls. I'm developing an AI to make calls right now. I have not yet got it to the point where I would let it loose on our clientele, but we're trying to get there. Over the years, though, once I realized I was allowing leads to get stagnant in the database, I got very hungry to find this AI tool that could go and reactivate all of our stale leads. And so I turned Structurally loose or the YLOPO bot loose, and I turned these things loose and created all this collateral damage. My ISAs were like, what the hell are you doing? We got active clients calling us saying, what is this shit? We got past clients unsubscribing and everything in between. The collateral damage was absolutely insane. If you let these things loose, you gotta be very careful to make sure you got the controls really, really tight. So don't let the AI monster loose on a big database. The collateral damage is no bueno. And then lastly, cutting when times get tough. So I learned this mistake. Obviously, I never cut the PPC because you don't bite the hand that feeds you. But I did drop some of my other stuff. I dropped my radio, I dropped the television stuff, I dropped some of our outdoor. And what I noticed quite quickly is that our cost to acquire the customer went way up. Because all of those things, they give you lift on your PPC. They give you lift on all your other advertising. All your digital gets lift from your legacy stuff. And so without that, after a few months, you may think you're a household name, but if they're not seeing you every day on the drive or they're not hearing you on the drive to work, it can go away pretty quick. So we lost hundreds of thousands of dollars just looking at our cost to acquire the customer. So yes, cut the fat. Cash flow is absolutely king, but do not cut marketing unless you absolutely have to. And don't assume just because you can't directly correlate a lead to your billboard that it's not making you money, because it does give you lift. We do the same thing. I have a slightly different formula for calculating it. I believe you want to buy back your time profitably. So I believe that, first of all, stop doing low-level shit. Stop doing all the stuff that you can outsource easily to buy back your time, to create bandwidth. Now, the formula that we use, we figure out what we make or we expect to make. We divide that by 2,000. That's roughly the amount of working hours. That'll give you your rate. If you're making $500,000 a year, divided by 2,000, you're worth $250 an hour. So a lot of the agents on our team, that's kind of the level that they're playing at when they get to sort of that 4, 5, 6 homes a month range. They're making that $500,000 a year, net money. Now it's time for them to buy back their time. So this is cool. This is a recruiting and a retention piece at the same time. So check this out. We have an internship program where people who are in the process of getting their license can start on the team, and we respect their time at $50 an hour. So if you're making $250 an hour, that fits that 5-to-1 equation that we're talking about. And what's cool about it is these interns have an opportunity to earn a little while they learn a lot. They get to real-world experience, they get to do open houses, they get to do showings, they get to drive off to Field and Stream to look at that one-off property. They get to set up open houses, they get to deliver pre-listing packages, they get to do circle prospecting, all the stuff that will help them cut their teeth and learn. They also get to interact with agents that are in that top 10%. So they're getting that mentorship piece, and they're getting to make $50 an hour. So they get to have food with their meals, which is pretty cool. Simultaneously, the agents who are at that stage now where they're kind of reaching burnout, right? You get to that 4, 5, 6 a month without enough leverage, you're gonna reach burnout. You start to wonder, could I just do 2 or 3 deals over at, EXP and net more money and have a better life? Those questions start to creep into their mind. This solves that. They get to buy back their time. And so what we do is if you maintain a certain threshold, for us it's 5 deals a month, we give you credits to these young folks' time. And so they get to spend their credits leveraging themselves, which gives them back their evenings, gives them back their weekends. It gives them a semblance of normalcy so they can be at their kids' soccer games and they can make the trip with the boys and do the stuff that kind of gets eroded when you start to get busy, right? I mean, our own success tends to cannibalize our personal lives. So this really, really helps. But knowing your buyback rate and making sure that you're not spending your time doing anything at all that it could be outsourced is key. But I thought that internship and that as a retention strategy to retain your top people and leverage them was a cool piece. Another AI-generated image, I asked it to generate an image of the big 3, which is lead generation, lead follow-up, and lead conversion. So we tell our agents that the most important thing that they can do each and every morning is spend 2 hours on the big 3. We tell them, you might want to write this down, we tell them the mornings are for follow-up, your afternoons are for follow-through, okay? Really simple way for them to understand how to structure and prioritize their day. Now, if they tell me, I don't have time to spend 2 hours, okay, let me see your phone, I want to see the screen time app on your phone. All right, just found your 2 hours, motherfucker. Right? So you do have time. What do you do with that time? Well, lead generation is either one-to-one or one-to-many. They are not in charge of the overall lead generation of our brokerage, but they can absolutely be generating leads. They can do that by reaching out to their past clients, their sphere, etc., or creating amazing content. That's the one-to-many piece, or sending out a mass email, or sending out a mass bomb, but something that has some leverage and some one-to-many. So that's lead generation. After that, if you do a good job, you'll have people to follow up with. So what do you do with follow-up? This is our reframe on follow-up, because a lot of people sort of approach it with a hunter's mentality, and then they can kind of put people off, their commission breath comes through. So we reframe it. We say, look, when you're following up, number one thing you want to be doing is educating. So A, you have to understand the market. You're phoning to educate and help people get clarity on what they're trying to do. And the only thing you need to remember is that everybody that you're following up with is going to move at some point. It's not a matter of if, it's really just when. And so what you need to discover is A, what do they need right now where they are in the process? What can you offer to be valuable? And then just help them figure out their timing. Once we have definitive timing, meaning less than 6 months, that's your trigger to move into lead conversion. But until you're there, until you know they have definitive timing, you are helpful, you're just there to follow up and help them really crystallize their plan. Lead conversion is where we become a hunter. Once we've heard definitive timing, then it's all about making a value, back to scripting, knowing what to say in that moment so that you can get them to say, yes, I want that thing that you have, and having them agree to come to a meeting. The meeting takes place in the office. Now this works really well with this post-NAR settlement stuff, right? We got to get people to the office so we can explain our services for buyer brokerage. So then the lead conversion game really becomes about getting them to say yes to the meeting, getting them to show up to the meeting, which is a science in and of itself, and then at that meeting, getting them to agree to work with you and work with you exclusively. That's the lead conversion game. And your agents need to be really good at all 3 of these things. And so all the training, all the effort needs to be in training your agents on these big 3. Now, after listening to, I don't know how many calls, I have found that there are roughly 6 conversion killers. So when I listen to our ISAs or I listen to our agents and the recordings, I found there's 6 commonalities for people who get hung up on a lot, okay? So I'll run through them for you guys, rapid fire. Number 1 is if you approach the call with a salesperson's exuberance. Hey, it's AJ Hazzi with Advantages Realty. How's it going today, right? Ugh, sales wall comes up, right? And commission breath's coming through. They don't want to talk to you. You got to approach the call with a calm demeanor, a consultant's demeanor. You're diagnostic in your process. The same way if you were to call a lawyer or if you were to call an accountant or any other esteemed consultant, how would they approach the call? They would ask questions. They wouldn't be overly excited to be talking to you. They wouldn't feel like it's their privilege to be talking to you or treat it like that. They would work through their consultative questions to determine if the next step made sense. So that's the approach, that's the frame they need to take it. Next conversion killer, asking how your day is going. Hey, how's your day going? Well, it was fine until you called me. Like, get out of here, right? I know you mean well with the question and you feel like it's polite, but really, you haven't earned the right to ask that question yet. And they know it's disingenuous because you don't even know each other. So, like, who cares? Just get to the point. Tell them who you are and why you're calling. Next one, this kills a lot of conversations right dead in the tracks. Is now a good time to talk? Oh, well, since you're offering, no, it's not. I'm actually quite busy. And yeah, no, have a good day. Call me another time. Oh, well, when would be a good time? I don't know, call me next week. Yeah, they're gonna answer the phone. So, just ditch the question. Who you are, get right down to it. Why are you calling? If it's a bad time, they'll surely tell you. You don't need to open that door for them. This one, we train our agents, just lose the word just completely. I'm just calling, I'm just following up, I just wanted to check in. What does just do? It diminishes our authority, it diminishes our value. Just lose the word, you don't need to say it. I'm following up. We think it sounds professional. When we tell our agents, they call and say, hi, I'm following up regarding this or that. The first thing people think when they hear the word follow-up is, oh, you're trying to sell me something. You're a salesperson. Ugh, sales wall goes back up. So try this frame out. Just slight reframe. Hey, it's AJ Hazzi calling. I just finally got a minute to give you a call back. We were chatting a couple months ago about buying homes in the Glenmore area. Where are you guys at with your consideration to buy a home? Just, hey, I just finally got a minute to call you back. Not, I'm just following up. It's a total reframe. I just finally had a minute. I'm a busy, high esteemed professional. They're gonna feel way more likely to take you seriously on that call. And lastly, and the most important one, is letting the client lead or letting them dictate the call. You have to have a lead worth following, and in the absence of a leader, the client will fill the leadership vacuum. But how do you control a call? Great consultative questions, exactly. So you have to know the questions to ask, you have to have them embedded. And so you're controlling the pace and the tempo of the call by bringing everything back to the questions. If you don't, sometimes you end up on these 20 or 30-minute conversations with people about like their very unique needs and all these different things. And you know this is going nowhere, but you're letting them lead it and you're being facilitative in nature, so you're going along for that ride. You hang up the phone exhausted, you know that's going nowhere. And how did the call end? Oh, set me up on a search. And you're like, yeah, okay, let me do that. And now you've got after work to do from that painful conversation, and you got them on a search, and they're gonna just probably ghost you, right? Who's got hundreds of people on saved searches that never answer an email? Yeah, it's painful. So what we do is we have a process. We ask our questions, if this, then that. If they have definitive timing, we make a value proposition that they say yes to. At that point in time, if they say yes, they say, great, what we'll do next is meet for 15 to 20 minutes to do a game plan. What works better for you, days or evenings? And so you're moving them towards this meeting. At that meeting is when you're gonna uncover their motivations and get really deep and granular on what they wanna buy or what they wanna sell. But not until. We wanna determine timing and lead the call. Anybody ever felt like this before? Drives me crazy. One of my kind of overarching missions is to try to elevate the realtor to some of the more esteemed professions. I don't understand how it came to be that clients who do this once every 5 or 7 years are leading the process and taking a professional who makes hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and does this for a living, and they're leading the process. Why is we doing that? But again, you have to have a lead worth following, which means you have to have a process. You need to have a consultative process that brings people safely to where they want to go. And people think they're being domineering by having a process, but the reality of it is the client wants to be led. They want this. It's no different if you're on the dance floor, ladies, and you end up slow dancing with a man, and he doesn't take the lead. Naturally, what will you do? You will lead, right? Now, is that what you want? Yes, you want to lead? You got two left foot Morgan there, I get it, but listen. No, what you want is you want the man to take control and lead the dance. That's what you want. But in the absence of a leader, you'll fill that vacuum. It's the same thing with the clients. They really want to know they're in the presence of a true professional, someone that has done this before. And so we train our agents that we have a proven process, we do this for a living, and just this is how we do it here. So when the client comes into our space, it's just like, hey, I get it. No, I know you've had other real estate agents that have just sort of jumped to the pump or gone and shown property or whatever. I get that. I don't want to waste your time, and I want to show you a process that works much better. So this is how we do it here. And we just empower our agents to hold the line. And so you can see there's a common thread here. Empower the agents not to do a bunch of dumb shit that they're not going to get paid for, and empower them to learn and then operate a sales system that gets clients what they want. All right. So what this ultimately leads to, and if I was giving a talk a year ago about exclusive agency, there would be a bunch of pushback in the room. You guys would tell me, oh, we don't need to do that, and blah, blah, blah. We've been running exclusive buyer's agency, which what you guys call it, buyer brokerage arrangements in the US. So we've been running this system for 12 years, okay? Everything is coming to the office, here's a presentation. At the end of the presentation, would you like us to go to work? It is exactly the same as a listing presentation. You show up, provide value, and see if they want you to go to work. Exactly the same thing. But you gotta have a killer presentation. You have to be able to clearly articulate your value and differentiate yourself from all of the others. The good news is the competition is not that good. So differentiating yourself from a bunch of turkeys is not gonna be tough. But the presentation is key. At the presentation, we gotta do the first thing, which is explain agency to them. We will often use as a segue question, has anyone ever taken the time to properly explain agency to you? And 99 times out of 100, the answer is, no, I don't think anyone has. Great. I just have a quick 15-minute deck that I want to run you through that'll help you understand my fiduciary duty to you and all the benefits. First thing you do on this meeting, you start to build the portal. You build the portal for the very first time, not in advance hoping they're going to show up. At the meeting, you build the portal before their eyes. You get them to understand the difference between needs and wants. You have that conversation, you write down all their wants, build the portal around their needs. Now you've got the portal built. The next thing you do is you explain the difference between, you have two options when it comes to working with a realtor. You can go direct to the listing agent, here's what they can do for you, this, this, and this. Or you could have someone exclusively representing you who can do all of that, plus all the million things that we do. And you say, really, going direct to the listing agent is kind of like playing poker with your hand on the table. Or it's like going to court against a lawyer without a lawyer. Oh, yeah. So can you see why it's so important to have somebody exclusively representing your needs when you go through this process? Yeah, I can. Okay, great. So now we've at least got them to agree to that. That's the first tie-down question. As you go on, the next thing you need to do is you can explain market education to them. So this is actually where we're going to get out and look at property. I want you to leave your checkbook at home. This is just about helping you get educated and become what sellers fear most, which is an educated buyer. This is going to help you refine your criteria, and it's going to save us hours and hours through the process. Now, most realtors wouldn't do this because they think it's a waste of their time. But I know that by helping you do this, we're going to get you in much better stead. Right there in that meeting, right there, I say, why don't we do this? Pull out your phone. When would be a good time for us to get out and do some market education? Now what have we got? We've got a portal built. We have a date, time, and place to get out and look at properties in a fun, informative atmosphere. So this is all part of the sales process. These are little tie-downs. Then we go into the value stack. Everything that you do, the connections that you have, the 5-star experience that you provide, everything else gets value stacked. And at the end, you say, and just to summarize, you get all of this, and I won't ask you to retain me. All I expect in return is your loyalty. Does that sound fair? They say, yep. And the cool part about this is you get to say, let me just tell you a little bit how the fees work, okay? Now, depending on how this all shakes out, you may or may not be able to say, but what we say is, my fee comes from the proceeds of the sale. We don't say the seller pays it, we don't say the buyer pays it, we say the fee is paid by the proceeds. The buyer thinks the proceeds are theirs, the seller thinks the proceeds are theirs. However, that is an honest and true statement. The fee is paid for from the proceeds of the sale. It's a great line to write down. Now, what we've been able to do in our market, which is pretty cool, is we actually get about 0.5% more than what's commensurate in our area by explaining, and we have a slide in the presentation where we show the spectrum from $1 on ComFree or whatever, all the way up to what some people offer, which is like usually a bonus in the cooperating commission. And we say, look, there's a whole spectrum here. And I would really hate for you to think that we showed you listings that skewed a certain way. We're going to show you everything from for sale by owners to off-market properties to even properties that are offering $1 or offering no compensation. Our fee is 3% or whatever it is you charge. And as I said, we get paid out of the proceeds. But this way you get to know and sleep well knowing that we're going to show you everything and we don't have to have that awkward conversation. Getting them to sign an exclusive agency agreement is easy with enough value. Cost is only ever an issue in the absence of value, right? So we must make sure that our presentation is flawless. So we train our agents on this. And what's cool about this is right out of the box, a 21-year-old kid with a buyer's agency presentation like this can close a $2 million buyer to an exclusive agreement. I've seen it time and time again. In fact, our young ones that just come out of training have the best appointment conversion. So if you want the exact presentation that our team has used to convert over 3,500 buyers, then my gift to you, just scan that and we'll send it over to you. What I'll do, this says you'll get a non-branded version. I will also send my branded version and I will send you the training video that we use to explain it, the one that's in our internal training process. So the issue that we have as team leaders is that our agents often don't have what? They don't have influence. So they can't close like we can. They can't get the job done the way we can because they lack that influence. So realizing this is a problem, the work was to codify influence. How do you transfer or how do you develop influence in your agents or in yourself? So the equation is authority plus conviction equals influence. If that's true, then how do we raise our authority? Okay? The first thing we need to do is get educated. We need to really understand one thing. Right now, the average consumer, while they're buying or selling a home, does 24 minutes a day of research in that topic. Do you? Do your agents? Or are we just sort of repeating the same day? So what we need to do in order to make sure that we are the smartest person in that conversation with respect to the subject matter is make sure we have a steady diet of relevant, timely, topical information. So how do you do that? Well, you subscribe to the people who have authority in your area. You subscribe to YouTube channels. You subscribe to blogs. You subscribe to news. You set up news alerts on your Google. But all of your agents need to commit to studying at least 30 minutes a day on what's happening. And this is not just like local. You got to go macro. What's happening in the world? What's happening at the macro level? Like, you got to get it a little bit outside of just your own little town because there's other influencers. And some of the concerns coming from buyers and sellers are not local. The concerns are global. So you have to be able to speak intelligently about that. What's happening in the bond market affects the mortgage market, all those things. Your agents have to have intelligent sound bites on these items or they will not have enough authority to influence the agents. Another way to generate authority, once you've learned something and you know it well enough, what that does is it opens the door to being able to teach it. Well, how do you teach it? One to many on YouTube, right? You start putting out content about the thing that you now have expertise on. And so you can start to build your authority. What's neat is even if a lot of people aren't watching your agent's YouTube videos, what they can do in advance, this is a good one, write this one down. In advance of the appointment, if they have a video that's like their take on what's going on in the market or the 8 things you need to know before you buy a home in this area, whatever that piece of authoritative content, you send it to the client in advance of the meeting. What that does is it raises the authority score of that agent. Also, it creates, and Ken will attest to this, anybody that's watched you on YouTube has an upward view of you. In my own life, I have experienced authority. When I started to write for Canadian Real Estate Wealth magazine, it put me on a whole other level for authority. People who were in that investment space would suddenly contact me and there would be a totally different conversation. It was, hey, I don't know if you would have time or if I'm a big enough client for you, but would you be willing to sit down and talk to me a little bit about my investments? Phew, yeah, I would. Same thing happened when I started doing YouTube videos. Terrible ones, mind you. Same thing, I started becoming well-known in like, how to cash flow a property, how to fix and flip profitably, all those things. When people would come to me, same to what Ken said, I've been watching your content for a couple of years now. I was wondering if you'd be willing to sit down with me. Total upward view, huge, because the authority score goes up. A gentleman that is, he's put $1 million, here, talk about authority. This guy lived, he's from Toronto, so this is the equivalent of New York to California. We're on the West Coast. He doesn't know me from Adam. Been reading my articles in Canadian Real Estate Wealth. We have one Zoom call. He flies to Kelowna. He had just sold his denturist practice. He had $1 million. It was every dollar he had to his name. He flies to Kelowna, hands me his $1 million, and he goes, I just retired, and it's all in your hands, bud. One Zoom call. But because he had been reading my articles for a while now, I had such a high level of authority that he was willing to turn his entire future over to me. That was a huge light bulb moment for me, that authority is one of the most important things that you can invest in and in your agents. But that's not the whole story. You also need conviction, okay? Actually, before I move on, what are some other ways you can generate authority, just like easy ones?
Video, public speaking, authorship.
Awesome.
Charging.
Totally. What about simple ones that are like more environmental when you're, like, when a doctor shows up with a stethoscope and a white lab coat, okay, doc, whatever you say, right? A well-dressed agent in an environment, a very professional environment, where, does the question, does having a nice office help? Sure as shit does. If you bring somebody in there and sit them in the boardroom and the receptionist comes out and offers them a suite of beverages and they're looking at, the big screens on the wall and they're impressed. And the agent walks in and he's dressed sharp. Okay, authority is up. Not as much as writing an article for a national magazine, but it's definitely up, right? And if they had sent a video of them on the tube in advance of that meeting and there was that environmental piece, their authority score is high enough to get control and potentially influence the outcome of that conversation. Cool. So next is conviction. Conviction is really about certainty. When two people are in a room, whoever has more certainty is the one that has influence over the other person. Conviction is the ingredient that comes from really being bought in on what we sell. Like, are you guys all in on real estate, the asset class that we purport? Are you all in? Do you own it? Are you buying it? Are you in the mix? Are your agents? You got to eat your own cooking. You got to be totally bought. And people might say, AJ, the market's not great in our area. There's no good or bad market. There's only good or bad tactics depending on the market. There's always a great way to or reason to buy or acquire real estate. If you're bought in, if you have that conviction, it goes a long way. Also, conviction comes from being educated. So the same way that you build your authority, you'll also build your conviction. When you start to know that something is right for somebody and you're asking the right questions, see, the problem is, and that comment that was made in the presentation before mine about when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. It's very true. And so if agents don't ask the right questions to really figure out what's right for that client, they will miss the opportunity because they will not themselves be convicted in the advice they're giving. They're just kind of regurgitating the same bullshit they say all the time. But if they listen and they know, okay, I know why this person's moving, I understand it's a downsize, which means they're gonna put money aside, which means they can invest that, which means they can get to their grandkids. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Okay, now I understand, and now that conviction comes through. Combined with the authority they already had, now guess what? They're leading, they're influencing, they're able to move people into motion. Conviction's key. An example of that in my own life, I had this guy start on our team. He was joining as an ISA. And this is like right when I was getting going. This is 2014, building the team. This guy, Evan, he had just come from the cable company, making outbound calls for the cable company. So he had a T4 or a W2 for you guys. So I said to him, all right, what did you show as income last year? He goes, oh, I showed 80 grand. I said, okay, you got to buy a house. What? It's a 23-year-old kid. I go, you got to buy a house right now. He goes, I said, well, you quit your job, but the bank doesn't know yet, so you're going to go buy a house right now. He goes, what? And I said, yeah, buddy, you got to do it. I said, otherwise you're going to be on the sidelines for the next couple of years. And guess what? Where we are in the market cycle is just starting to recover. And I was a student of the market cycle, and I knew where we were in the market. So I was convicted that now was the time to buy. I was buying as much as I could get my hands on and telling anybody to listen. And that conviction was coming through. He literally said to me, what house should I buy? I went on the matrix, and I literally found in 2 minutes a house that said, this is the house you buy. Okay. We wrote an offer. He wrote the offer, bought this house for 400 grand or whatever it was. 5 years later, the house is worth 1.4. Guy's got $1 million net in his net worth now, thanks to the conviction that I had, because that wasn't going to happen without me being fully bought in. So this is just an illustration of when you really believe something, it comes through. So we got to get our agents to that place. We got to get them to the point where they have the authority, but they also are so convicted and so bought into the thing that we sell and the service we offer that they can transfer that and they can influence their clients. Does that make sense? I've never communicated this slide before, but does that communicates? Cool. Awesome. Last little frame and then I'm done. This is a really good frame for creating that conviction. Imagine you get the opportunity to visit yourself in 1999, okay? So you know what's gonna happen, right? You know about the dot-com boom and bust. You know about the huge ramp up in real estate. You know what's coming in crypto in a few years. You know all of it. The only problem is, when you visit yourself, they won't recognize you. You are a complete stranger to them. So you don't get to say, hey, I'm you. They're gonna like, okay, bud. So now you have this Herculean task of trying to convince this stranger who doesn't know you from Adam to do what you know for sure is the right thing. Like you have total certainty, total conviction. What would you be willing to say to yourself in 1999 to get you to take action? Like, what would you be willing to do? Would you shake the shit out of yourself? I would. I would stop at nothing. That is the frame that world-class salespeople operate from when they are truly convicted. Sometimes they'll give their clients a little shake because they know. It's like they're from the future, right? So it's a bit of a mind, but I shared this with our agents and it clicked for a few of them. They're like, okay, I get it. So that was a cool piece. That's it, guys. That's my time. I hope you guys found that valuable. I'm super excited to party with you guys tonight, and I think it's going to be tons of fun. Moonshine tasting, don't know what to think about that. But if you want to stay in touch, I'd love to. You can follow me at VW Academy. Instagram is the best place to find me. We can DM back and forth if you just ever have questions, or if you ever do want to talk about coaching, or if you have a conversion issue on your team, I can just do a spot training with you guys, with your team, help you improve whatever conversion issues you've currently got. Or if you want to talk about full-scale coaching, I'd love to have that chat with you as well. Did everybody who wanted the presentation get a chance to grab the QR code on it? Everybody's good? Okay, awesome. Well, this is great. Let's rock and roll. Thanks for letting me on your stage.